Well, thank you, Sarah. I'm so impressed with the crowd here today, considering most of you guys are in e-commerce and probably haven't slept properly for a month, right? Singles Day, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. So look, let me give you a bit of background, and then what I'm really hoping to do, I don't have fancy slides. I know there's some really big, heavy-hitting speakers here who have got more amazing slide decks than I do. I'm going to try and give you guys really practical advice. Everybody's here trying to build their e-commerce store and their brand, and that's what I focus with our clients on doing. So my background is I left Facebook. I was there for 2 years, focusing on e-commerce in the Asia-Pacific region. So let me do another round of questions. What would you pay to spend a day in the Facebook's office getting to see behind the scenes of who are the biggest spenders in the market? Who are the biggest brands? What are the biggest products that are blowing up right now? What are the trends happening in the market? What are the strategies that are really taking off to get these brands super successful? And what's coming around the corner? What would you pay to have access to that information? Would anybody pay $100 for the day to sit in that office and get that information? This man over here is going to make a lot of money. $500? $1,000? $10,000? Maybe. Okay. So look, what I would do day in and day out is I would work with some of the fastest growing e-commerce brands in the region. So some of the brands that I was across that you may or may not be familiar with, the High Smiles, Skinny Tans, Fox Tans, Carbon Cocos, really big brands coming out of Australia, spending, growing quickly through Facebook advertising. And what I realized working at Facebook was I felt like I was on the wrong side of the table. I would watch these guys as they would start a brand, and literally within months, they're starting to scale up really quickly. Young guys, like myself, a bit younger at the time, sitting in a warehouse, you've never heard their names before, and then a couple of years later, you're seeing them on Forbes 30 under 30, with like one of the most successful brands in the region, biggest brand in the category. So I felt like something was happening in the market, right? Something enough was happening for me to leave the free breakfast lunches and dinners, all the perks that come along with the job, right? The fancy slides that I could have come with today. Enough was happening for me to leave with nothing. I was like, I'm going to go out into the market. There's something happening in this space. And so here's what I found. What I did was I took the strategies that we were passing out from Facebook, and you don't get much time with your clients as you wish, right? It's all about scaling the service. So my whole theory was, what could we do if we implemented that with particularly e-commerce brands on a day-to-day basis? And so I'm not going to go really deep into our story, but leaving with no clients, my agency now, ROAS Media, is the largest independent media buyer for Facebook amongst the agencies in Singapore, and one of the top 10 largest in Asia Pacific. So we're working with some of the biggest e-commerce brands in the industry, which means nothing to you guys. It's cool. I'm going to try and give you some really practical advice on how you could use Facebook to scale up your own e-commerce stores, right? So starting from a really macro level, who sees on the Facebook groups and all the internet marketers out there posting a screenshot of like, I made 5,000 times ROI on my campaign, right? It's so BS. Because it's complete BS. You ask them how much they spend, and it's like, well, I spent 30 cents so far and I got one sale, right? So I think what is interesting for you guys as you're starting out, it seems many of you in this e-commerce journey, is where do we begin in terms of like expectations, forecasts, I'm just going to talk about Facebook, and particularly in e-commerce, but it's like, what should we be expecting, right? And I can share from my experiences at Facebook and now out in the agency, most of these guys at scale are hitting between 2 to 3 times return on ad spend. That's like, and you got to think about that. In the first month, if you're spending like $100,000 a month to be making back $300,000 a month in sales, that's some healthy numbers. The biggest success story we had over Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend was on the Cyber Monday. We helped a client achieve $880,000 US in sales on the day. So that was just focusing on the Australian market, a little bit of Canada. Haven't hit that $1 million USD mark just yet, but next year as they open up to more countries. So the practical advice starts now for you guys. I think if you're looking to build up your store, if you're looking at the platforms that you could be advertising on, my advice would be to be looking at products, services, and everything that fit within that model of that return on ad spend at scale. The sweet spot seems to be about $20,000 to $30,000 spend per month. You can hit some slightly higher returns on ad spend, 4s and 5s, depending on the verticals. So another tidbit of information, most of the verticals that I see taking off the last couple of years, beauty space is absolutely huge, right? And you've got to think about the target demographic. If you find something hot, something cool, priced at that sort of nice price point, and you're packaging it in a way with the creative, you're trying to tap into the largely female demographic who's like, hey, that's cool, I'm going to try this out, right? One of the other things that I'm seeing, though, is when I was working at Facebook, you're looking at, for you guys, you have to think about your average order value. And over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of people seeing success and scaling their stores, converting this into a Singapore number, around that $30 to $40 average order value, right? It's not too much of a stretch, hopefully, for some of the products and services that you're looking for. But the competition is heating up in the market. So what we're seeing is, and what we're advising a lot of our clients is, we need to be shooting for different type of bundle deals, upsells and cross-sells. Our target internally for the clients that we bring on or that we're trying to scale is around that $60 to $80 Sing mark. So it's how can we bundle these packages together and incentivize them to buy more when they come on the store? Because you're paying the same for getting that person across, right? The metrics aren't changing quite as much in terms of on the Facebook side, but you're still paying the same amount as everybody else is to get that traffic across. The real big difference is coming when they're landing on the store, conversion rates, average order value, the cross-sell, upsell, how good is your store actually working for you? Another little interesting bit of information, 90% of our clients, our e-commerce clients, are all on Shopify. So it's just, I was having a look through the portfolio the other day and seeing, where are these successful stores coming from? How are they doing it? Most of them are on Shopify. And credit to the team. It's easy to set up the store. You put in the different applications. It's, you can get set up really quickly. So one thing to remember when you're advertising on Facebook, a little acronym is BEAR. B, E-A, and R. So the B is the bid, right? And for most of you here, you're thinking, I don't want to be competing against the big guys, just pushing up my bid. It's getting expensive. It's getting more and more expensive every year. So what we're doing as a company is focusing as much as we can on the EA, which is your expected actions. So Facebook is an auction system, as I'm assuming most of you would know. So we are trying to work in a way with our strategies that we really push up what the expected action rate looks like. So to give you an example of that, if you're thinking about your marketing funnel, top of funnel traffic, new people that have never seen you before, your mid funnel, people who might have engaged with the page or engaged with you on Instagram, bottom of funnel, people who've visited the website, added to cart but haven't quite made a purchase yet, right? If we break it up into that, what we're doing in a way to sort of boost our expected action rate, if you will, is we'll start with a primed launch of our creatives. So there's no slides after this, there's no nothing. I'm not offended if you guys are taking notes on your phone. It's actually quite great. So the primed launch strategy is this. What we will do is we'll take one piece of creative and we'll put that out into some really warm audiences. And so within the first couple of hours, Facebook's seeing that, wow, this is actually getting some good traction, CTRs are really good, conversion rates are really good. And then what we'll do is, if you go into your ads manager, you go and have a look, you click on the post, you can go and have a look at the post with comments, take that ID from the URL, right? And so you've got the post ID. And what you do is you duplicate your ads and put in that same post ID so that Facebook's pushing that same one out, the same one that you've warmed up and primed across the top audiences, and you're pushing that out to cold traffic, just giving it a better start. What you're also doing using that same post is you're collecting all of the social proof and engagement. One of the things you really get to see when advertisers are spending $500,000 a month, $1 million a month plus on Facebook advertising is just how important that is. If you think about it, it's just so impactful, right? If you're coming across your feed, it's very hard to fake, for most of us, like thousands and thousands of likes and thousands of comments on the feed. Right? Yes, you can buy engagement, yes, you can do it, but at that rate, you've got to know that somebody is spending big and it's working out for them, right? It's a good indication that, hey, this is actually quite successful, it's working out well, and look through the comments, see how good these people are as actually engaging with the consumers. It's one thing I still don't see people doing enough of, is if you think about it, the offline version of not engaging with people on your comments is having your own retail store, and you've got people in the store being like, how much is this? How long does this last? Is this as good as they say? I've got some questions over here, and the staff assistants in the store are just like this, right? Just looking around. You've got to respond to those comments. You've got to engage with people. And some of the most successful brands I've seen have been so adamant in getting stuck in there. It's like running TV ads. If your TV ads had the thing, can't remember what that thing is at the bottom of the screen, and you've got people just shouting about how amazing this is, and you see that live interaction, right? It's just, it really adds to the acceleration of the performance. And the other thing we're looking at is, if you remember back to the acronym BEAR, the R is your relevance and your quality. So we're really focusing a lot more on the creative. It used to be a lot easier a couple of years ago. You put out a couple of cat images, some like random copy, you're still gonna get some half decent results. It's getting a lot more competitive now. So some of you might be wondering, how often should I be putting out creative, right? What is that frequency and what is that cadence that's gonna help me to be successful? So if you're spending, I don't know, couple of $100 a day, I think where we would sort of gauge as that rule of thumb is you're looking at 1 to 2 fresh pieces of creative a month. If you're spending a couple of $1,000 a day, it's at least sort of like 1 fresh piece of creative every 7 to 9 days. The clients that are spending $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 a day are pumping out like a fresh video piece of creative every 3 or 4 days. You burn through your audiences really quickly, and I think there's also, like I can't comment on this from an official Facebook point of view, this is just what I'm looking at on the data on our side, but there's almost that added boost that you're getting from putting out fresh pieces of creative onto the platform. Like you've got to think of it from Facebook's point of view. Facebook doesn't want their audience seeing that same ad that you've been pushing out for the last 6 months, right? And everybody's starting to get tired of it. So the other things that I really wanted to help you guys out with today, thinking about, where can you take it from here, is just looking at that post ID. Going back to that, I know a lot of people are doing like dark posts, split testing thousands of different copies, split testing thousands of different things. We're doing that on a smaller scale, and yes, we're seeing some results from it, but we're still seeing better results in general from using that single post ID, like across the funnel. And so the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is like, think about customer journeys, right? I think the one thing that marketers really like to do is make things as complicated as possible. Facebook, like a lot of us, when we're first getting started or when I consult people on like how the platform works, they just see like numbers flashing, almost like the Matrix, right? They're just seeing like numbers flashing in front of their face. They're just going a bit blind. Oops, sorry. And they're getting a bit confused with everything. Think about this, like it's just a person at the other end of that phone, right? Whether they're waking up in their bed and checking their feed in the morning, checking it at the dinner table, much to mum's dismay, or they're checking it on the go. It's a human being at the other end of that. So how do we craft this journey of communication that sort of matches with the user on the other end? And what we're looking at doing is just really pushing a couple of different levels on like where are people actually at in this journey. So on top of funnel, obviously you're going to be wanting to make sure this person has no idea who you are. They have no idea what you're selling. You can't convince them on a million things at once. So what are those key messages that you're wanting to get across, right? And you're not going to get everybody. So you might have another layer after that that's retargeting people that have watched your video views, but haven't necessarily gone to the store. So what are the other pieces of information that you might want to be passing to these people that haven't quite bought in just yet? So thinking about all of those different steps in the journey. This is kind of how the typical like Facebook product videos go, or even like people trying to sell their service in a coach. It's like, hi, my name is Rich. I've been in the industry for 7, 8 years. I have this company name. It's called and we sell all these types, and then they're gone, right? Like if you think about how quickly you are scrolling through your feed, you've got seconds to capture somebody's attention. So some of the best brands are starting with that. It's the hook at first to capture somebody's attention, right? Then you're telling them why they should still stay interested, and then you can start telling them about the product and how interesting it is. One of the things that we're playing around with a bit more the last couple of months is So yes, I told you, I'm going to completely flip on what I just said because we're testing everything. But yes, I told you to think about the customer journey. But we're also thinking about how can we craft videos in a way that covers the entire marketing funnel. So get their attention, tell them about the products. Then we're going through and this is us, this is our story. One other thing, and this is looking at everybody's ad accounts, we get access, having a look at what they're doing. Everybody discounts the 65 plus demographic. It's crazy. I've seen people spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a month and they've never even tried it to 65 plus. The thing about lovely grandma and granddad is they're sitting there with cash in the bank. And when I said that we're all scrolling through our feeds like this, grandma and granddad are flipping through their Facebook feed like it was the newspaper, right? Your ad is getting a lot of play. Okay. So we're looking at, okay, how can we make this a bit, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, I love grandma and granddad, got a great relationship with my family, but they're a very profitable audience. And so if that's something that you've never tried before, I'd highly recommend that, but you've got to remember some of the, think about the audience that you're targeting as well, try and make it as easy as possible for them to consume the information that you're putting out. And I'll leave it at that. I'm sure I hope there's a couple of questions. Would love to see how I can help you.
Look forward to questions.
Let's do it.
Sounds great. Okay, we have the one here, and then we have the second one there, and maybe in the front.
Thank you for sharing your experience. My name is Juan. So you gave a lot of tips, but for startups, I think you usually work with more established e-commerce names. So any tips for brand new startups? How to start, maybe?
Totally. So my advice would be just getting started. If you're looking at Facebook specifically, so I'd even zoom out a little bit, right? There's a couple of things that you should be looking at in terms of your store conversion rates, your average order value. Are you ready to even begin advertising on Facebook? So for yourself, if that's the position that you're in, I'd be looking at what is the, what's the average order value that I'm getting at the moment? Is it in the 30s? Is it in the 40s and the 50s? Can I add some of these Shopify upsell and cross-sell apps to increase that before I start my advertising? Try a 30-day retargeting window. So going after everybody that's come on the store the last 30 days. Some people start off way longer, and you might need to do that if you're only getting a small amount of visits to the store, but just play around with that window a little bit more, and then build those layers up, right? So something's wrong if you're not really getting profitable off your retargeting layers. You're not going to get profitable off the middle of the funnel and the top, right? So fix that first, then start adding in the middle. So the middle is, have you started building an audience? Have you started engaging with people on your Facebook page, your Instagram? Add that in. Once that's ticking, then start going after your top of funnel traffic.
You mentioned that we should refresh the creatives, right?
Yeah.
So when I refresh the creative, are you saying that I duplicate the ad set and then use a new creative for the ad?
Yeah, so great question, because I know this is very common in marketing land, duplicate the ad set. If you're scaling, duplicate. So we don't, we've tested that out and we don't see that working as well as the other strategies that we put in place. So in terms of the creative, one, you want to refresh it before you start hitting that creative lag, right? So you can start seeing over a couple of days or a couple of weeks that same piece of creative is not quite as potent as it used to be, right? That's when you want to be starting to introduce the new creative coming through. So the way I would do that is quite simply, practically take all of those ads that you've had on that one piece, duplicate those, put in that post ID, and so they're going into the same ad sets.
All right.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, guys. Appreciated the chance to talk to you. Thank you.